Hi, this is Mike Ignatoski, the creator of the GreenFox spreadsheet, the spreadsheet that uses Excel programming to make it behave like a computerized baseball scorebook or score sheet. It also automatically computes the game stats, which can be a big time saver. And even better, GreenFox can be configured to operate in one of three different league modes where it can track the cumulative stats for all players and teams in the league. In this video, I'm going to cover a new feature that was introduced in version 3.4 called the SPAT utility, and SPAT is an acronym which stands for the Starting Pitcher Assignment Table, which is a tool or a feature in GreenFox that allows users that are playing with custom leagues to conveniently assign pitchers, starting pitchers to games. So let's see how it works. Okay, so this is a spreadsheet that I have that I just finished this game, and you can see here from the score sheet mode up here in the corner that this is a custom league. So I'm going to show you the league sheet here. So we'll click on the league sheet, and you can see I have a custom league with one sub league, one division, and these four teams. So it's a pretty simple setup. And for these four teams, if we look at my schedule, you can see here I played several games, and I have 48 games scheduled and 36 have been played or completed. So this is version 3.4 and it does have a couple of new features regarding the schedule sheet that you can see here. One is these colored games with this orangish color, those indicate a doubleheader. That's this game type. You can see here it's a 0 is a single game, but 1 or 2 indicates that those are a game number for a doubleheader. So those are indicated with these orangish colors. Uh, the other thing I wanted to show is that these last 12 games, you see 37 to 48, are games that have not been played yet. And you can see that some of these game IDs have an asterisk at the beginning and some don't. And the reason they have an asterisk is because both starting pitchers have not been assigned. So you can see these games here with the Astros and the Mets, both starting pitchers have been assigned, and those IDs, I'll say, look normal. Whereas these next games that have the Expos, their pitchers have not been assigned, and all those IDs have this asterisk at the beginning of them. And that's for two reasons. One, it indicates that they don't have both starting pitchers assigned, and it also prevents you from clicking this game ID and loading it into the score sheet. When you click this ID, you'll get a message that says you can't load this game into the score sheet. So anyway, so that's just kind of look at the schedule, and what I want to show now is this. If I scroll to the right, you can kind of see the starting pitcher assignment table. It's empty right now, but you can see it's here, as well as this new button up here that assigns starters using the SPAT. That's the acronym for the starting pitcher assignment table. So let's see how that works. Okay, so I guess the first thing I should do is show you this asterisk in action. So let's look at the score sheet. I cleared off the score sheet. I'm ready to load another game to play. And if I go to the schedule sheet and click one of these IDs that has the asterisk, let's say I choose this one, I'll get this message that simply says this game can't be loaded into the score sheet because the starting pitchers, at least one of them, is still blank. So pick a different game. So that's what I was talking about. That's what why the asterisk is here. And that asterisk is put there automatically. You don't have to enter it when you put your game in. But if you were to edit the schedule, you unlock it, add your game, and then click the lock, which does the validation. That's where it would notice the blank starters and put in this asterisk in the ID. So it's automatically put there. You don't have to worry about adding it or removing it. You just have to worry about assigning your pitchers. So anyway, let's look at this schedule here, I want to now assign these starters for the Expos for their next 6 games. So the first thing I'm going to do is click this button up here. And when I click this, I get an information pop-up window that says, in order to use the starting pitcher assignment table, you must select a team. Select a team by selecting a team ID in the visitor team or home team ID columns, and then click this button again. Okay, so what that's saying is, first I choose the team ID either in this column or in this home team ID column. So you select a cell. So I'll click one of these. It doesn't matter which one. Click the Montreal team ID and then click this again, and then it'll acknowledge that and say and ask you, do you want to use the starting pitcher assignment table for Montreal, MON? That shows the ID. And I'm going to say, and if that's not the team you wanted, you'd say, no, I want to do that. And then it'll tell you how to do it again. But we do want to, So let's do this again, and I'll say yes. So when I click it, that does a couple things. So the first thing it does, I'm going to scroll over, is you can see here it hides all the games that do not involve the Expos. So all these games left, let me move this out of the way, are the Expos home or away, but they're in all these games. So that's the first thing it does. The second thing it does, if I scroll over here to the right, is it populates the SPAT, the starting pitcher assignment table. And all it's really doing is kind of using what's already in the schedule and putting it in this convenient location here. So yeah, this is just copying what the game ID is, the same season game number, the game type, the starter, and you could see the home or away, etc. But you can see here in this yellow strip, I want to point out that this is where it tells you what team you're working with, which is here it's the ID of MON, and their team name in my league is Montreal Expos 73. And it tells me how many unplayed games there are. Now it shows all their games here, but it only will let you modify these unplayed games. And the reason that it shows all the games is because, at least for these ones recent, in order to decide who's going to pitch this game, you many times need to know who pitched the previous games. How many days rest do you need to pitch, or whatever logic you're going to use to decide who's going to pitch. But many times you want to know what's happened in the prior games to figure out who you're going to start the next game. The other thing that it does is it pops up this window, and this is kind of I'm not sure I have a great name for it, but it really is the SPAT pitcher list window. And because we chose Montreal, it brings up this little window that's titled the MON pitcher list. And I'm going to skip these check boxes here, but you can see in the list are the pitchers for my 1973 Montreal Expos team. All of them. And even plus one more. So you can see the way it shows it is it shows whether they're a righty or a lefty, their lineup name, and then the role. If I go over here to the rosters, this is going to be in the way here, but you can see here that role is this pitcher role here. And one thing I should point out here is for this league, I modified this role by adding this asterisk here for the starting pitchers that can start every 4 games or with just 3 games rest. So that was something that my game told me only certain pitchers could start at that frequency. So I marked them with this asterisk so I could tell them apart. So that's where that comes from. That's you can identify your pitchers any way you want to, but that's just showing an example of making a distinction between starters that can pitch every 4 games or every 5 games, however you want to do it. But it also kind of shows that this pitcher list window is kind of like the scoreboard window or the dice window. It's what they call modeless, but the point is you can interact with your spreadsheet even while this is active. Whereas many times when you get a message like a pop-up window, you can't interact with your spreadsheet. You have to first acknowledge that window and close it. But this is a window that doesn't act like that. So let's get back to the schedule and see how to use this. Okay, so now we're back here at the schedule sheet here with our populated SPAT, our pitcher list window with all our exposed pitchers in it. And I first want to kind of talk about a couple other things in this pitcher list window. One is at the bottom it always adds this extra entry here that's just called blank. You can see it doesn't have a right or left, but it's just called blank. And that's used to basically erase a starter. So we'll talk about that later, but I just want to mention it first. Up here are some filters that can control what's in this list. So we'll ignore this first one for right now, but this next one, it says exclude RP only. So by default, if you're using historical teams, the GreenFox will assign these pitcher roles based on how the pitcher was historically used in that season for that team, whether they were a reliever or starter, both, and depending on which happened more often will determine whether it's SP/RP or RP/SP if they did both. But either way, when I'm going to assign starters, typically I'm not going to have a relief pitcher start, at least in the classic sense, but maybe if you have an opener in today's baseball world, you might do that. But if I click this box, you can see here this first guy, Joe Gilbert, and the second guy, Pat Gyros, are both RP only. They didn't start any game. Same with Mike Marshall. And you can see Tom Walker is the same. So when I click this, you'll see it hides those pitchers. So I'm only left with pitchers that started at least one game for the Expos that season. So that's what this does. It just kind of cuts down on the clutter if you know you're not going to be selecting any relievers only. And if I hit sorry, so that would be this one. So this one is exclude anybody that starts with an RP, so we don't have anybody left that starts with an RP here. If it was like RP/SP, it would delete or hide that one, but there aren't any on this team, so it doesn't do anything. Okay, and over here is basically what we want to work with to fill in the starters. So here are the blanks for the starters, the games we want to assign to. You can see here that the opponent, the starting pitcher, has already been assigned, but just for whatever that's worth. And we've kind of already talked about it here, but maybe it's worth stating again. But this whole SPAT utility thing, you only can work with one team at a time. Even if you have a game that needs both starters, you can't assign them both at once. You have to assign one team and then kind of repopulate the SPAT table with another team to populate the starters, assign the starters for those games. So it only works with assigning starting pitchers for one team at a time. Okay, so here are 6 we want to assign. So let's kind of I think it automatically also puts the games in order. So you want the games in order so you can figure out who should start next. So if I look at this, I kind of would look at it and say, okay, Renko just started. Who's left? There's Rogers, whatever. But it looks like Torres should start the next game. So to do that, I go over here and I choose Mike Torres. You'll see here this right here, this SPAT clipboard is blank now. But when I click Mike Torres, first of all, it pops this message up that says Mike Torres has been copied to the clipboard. Click in the cell in the starter column to paste it. So that's talking about this starter column. So I'll say OK. So now if I click here, it'll put in Mike Torres. And I could, if there are other games where he should pitch, because you can see here he has this asterisk by his name, I'd say, okay, he can start every 4 days or games. It's not quite the same if there's double headers, but so I could say he could start here, and I could skip 3 games, and he could start this game versus the Mets. So I can just click it again. If I had more games down here, I might be able to assign him to some other games, but I don't have those. But the more you can keep clicking, and it'll keep assigning that same pitcher. So now let's figure out who's going to start game 41. I'm kind of looking back here. The only guy that can go every 4 games is Renko. So let me just first see when he can pitch. He pitched a game right here. So I'm going to pick his name first. And I get this message again. So you can kind of see here, you're already sick of this pop-up message now that you know how this works. So that's what this top box is for, to say suppress this confirmation message when you click somebody. So now if I switch pitchers, I don't get that message. But anyway, back to Renko. Here he is. He can pitch every 4 days, 4 games. So he's pitching here. That's 1 day's rest, 2, 3. So he's going to basically pitch right ahead of Torres. So I'll put him there. Okay, now I'm still looking at who's going to pitch this game. And McNally can't. So Baylor Moore could. It's basically between Baylor Moore and Bill Stoneman. So I'm going to take Baylor Moore. So I'll click him up here and click it like that. Now this next game, I got to go with Ernie McNally. Click him. Put him there. And now this game, I'm going to go with Steve Rogers since he's been resting. So I'll pick Rogers. But let's say I pick Stoneman. I put him in here. Then I realized, oh, I could have pitched Rogers. He's a lot better than Stoneman. So I'll choose Rogers and just click over the top here. Nothing's happening. And that's because it only can be a different cell. So sometimes if you want to click the same cell that's already highlighted, you need to click off of it and click back on it. And because there's already a pitcher assigned here, I get this message that says, ask me if I want to overwrite Bill Stoneman with Steve Rogers. I'm going to say, click yes. I could do that. So there's my Steve Rogers. The other thing I'll show is then this blank would be if I wasn't sure I wanted Ernie McNally here, I wanted to put Bill Stoneman here, I could click on my blank and click Ernie McNally, and it'll say, do you want to overwrite him with blank? If I say yeah, it just clears it out. And then I could put Bill Stoneman in there if I want to. Like that. The last thing I'll show here is that, if I were to click on a game that's already been played, let's say this one here, I try to, and I get this nasty gram that tells me I can't change the starter of a completed game. So that would be the same for all these games up here that have been played. So it'll only let you change games that have the asterisk that don't have a pitcher assigned. And it won't let you, if I click over here, it doesn't do anything. Basically any other cell here, it does nothing. Only in the starter column does it even try to do something. So I don't want to say it's error proof, but it's trying just to prevent accidents. So that's how you assign the starting pitchers. What it does not do is it doesn't do any starting pitcher rest math for you and say, hey, Torres only has 3 days off here. Is that okay? Or it doesn't know who can start every 5 games or 4 games, or it wouldn't care if you put the same pitcher in for every game. So it doesn't have any intelligence or knowledge or rules about who can start what game. That's totally up to the user. But anyway, that's how it works. And when you're done, you just click the Save Changes. And then it kind of undoes what it, or I shouldn't say undoes, but it saves. But it copies those starters back to the schedule. So you can see now here, those starters are assigned. You can see here and here. And now the game IDs are no longer, I guess, prepended with an asterisk at the beginning. They're now regular game IDs, so I could load them into the schedule. And that's basically how it works. So even after you're done assigning your starting pitchers, obviously you can still go change them before the games are played. So now maybe I wanted to change this, either the Expos pitcher. Maybe I want to change some of these one of these Yankee starters. So I could click the Yankee team ID here. I can click it over here, then go click this SPAT button here, and it asks me, do I want to use that? I'll say yes. So now it does the same thing for the Yankees. So it filters all the games, hides all the games that the Yankees aren't playing or haven't played. It shows me this. It tells me they've got 6 unplayed games. Maybe I should kind of color code them, but right now it doesn't. But you can kind of just see in this score column which games haven't been played. So these last 6. So here are the starters. So let me see if I use this filter over here, if they have any. All right, so let's look at this top one with Fred Bean. So he's a reliever and a starter. So he would be somebody that if I hover on this, it says exclude pitchers with a role starting with RP. So that would be Fred Bean. It starts with an RP. It's not RP only like Sparky Lyle, but it's RP SP. So if I click this, it would filter out Fred Bean, Sparky Lyle, Jim Magnuson, Lindy McDaniel, everybody that starts with an RP, both RP only and RP SP. So if I do that, you'll see now I'm only left with basically starters or starter relievers. And if I wanted to switch, I'm just going to kind of look at this. If I wanted to say, okay, let's let Steve Klein pitch this last game, I'll click his name, click Pat Dobson. Do you want to use Steve Klein instead? Yes. You could do that. Or if I wanted to say, I'm going to leave this one game blank here with this Sam McDowell, because I'm not sure who I'm going to start here yet, so I'm going to leave it blank and say, yeah, that's what I want to do. And I could say save changes. I could also say at this point even discard changes. Forget everything I did. I'll leave it like it was. So that's what I'm going to do here, and just say discard the changes. And it prompts you, do you want to discard any of them? Are you sure? Yes, I want to discard them. So now all these games are still assigned. Pat Dobson is still here, and nothing is changed. If for some reason show one more time. So let's say I pick the Mets and do the same thing. Oh, let me do this. Let's say okay. So let's say I was going to want to work with the schedule or add a game. I would first have to unlock the schedule. It tells me it's unlocked, and I could add a new game. But then let's say I realize, oh, first I should get these starting pitchers fixed. I want to change it. Now if I click this SPAT button here, I actually want to change the Mets. I click this thing. It says you can't do this. The schedule has to be locked in order to launch the SPAT utility. And the logic there is, when it's unlocked, you can be changing things that aren't quite, so it's not finished. It hasn't been validated. So you have to have locked the schedule. So I didn't make any changes, but I'm just going to lock what's here, and it should be fine. Now that you see that now that it's locked, then it'll let me use this SPAT table. So you can't launch the SPAT when this is unlocked, because it doesn't know that everything here is good or valid. So that's one of the other rules about using this is you can't do it while the schedule is unlocked. And the last thing I'll mention is there's this new button here, this unhide all game rows. And let's just try this. So if I launch it with the Mets, in theory, if I close this window with this box, it should do this. Well, I guess let's see what it does. So it acts just like the discard. So it unhides all of the other rows and it's like clicking that discard changes. And that's what it should work, but how it should work. But if for some reason you get out of the SPAT utility and some games are still hidden, I added this unhide all the game rows, which will do just that, kind of bring all the games back to being visible. You shouldn't need it, but it's just kind of a safety net. So that wraps up my discussion or explanation of how to use this new, what I'm calling the SPAT utility, the starting pitcher assignment table utility, which has to do with this table as well as that pop-up window, and how you can use that to help conveniently assign starting pitchers. The reason I created it was to help prevent users from having to go to their rosters or copy the starting pitcher's lineup name if you weren't sure how to spell it or use it. So I determined it this way was what I believe less error prone and a little more convenient way to assign or reassign the starting pitchers for a given team. So I'm looking forward to, I guess, hearing from users on how it works, but that's my explanation of how to use it. I hope that works out for you. Thanks for listening. One last word of note regarding the SPAT utility, which I may have already mentioned, but I want to mention it again, is that it's only usable for custom leagues. If you're playing a historical league season or team season, it's not available as a feature. It's only used in a custom league where the starters and the schedule isn't already defined. So I just wanted to mention that. Well, that wraps up this GreenFox video. I hope you found it helpful. But either way, I'd appreciate any feedback, whether it's what you liked about the video or the spreadsheet, or things you didn't like about the video or spreadsheet, or ideas that you have to make either the videos or the spreadsheet to make it work better. I appreciate all the feedback. Thanks again for taking the time.